We all have loud thoughts, so many of them. The anxious ones, the sad ones, the angry ones, the ones that keep us stuck, small, and playing it safe. And then there are quieter ones, underneath it all. The one that nudges you, the one that knows. I'm Christina, a clairaudient angel messenger and angel Reiki master teacher. I hear the angels speaking to me in my own voice, and I'm here to help you do the inner work to hear yours. This is Awakening to Your Soul Self. Grab a cup of tea, get cozy, and let's cross the bridge together. Please note, I am not a licensed therapist, counselor, or medical professional. Everything shared on this show comes from personal experience and spiritual guidance. If anything resonates deeply and you feel you need additional support, please reach out to a qualified professional. Hello, lovely souls. Welcome back to the Awakening to Your Soul Self podcast. I have a guest here today. Her name is Becky, and she is the creator of the Fear Theory, which we're going to get into today. She's also an identity and self-leadership speaker. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Perfect. So I always like to start every guest with tell me a little bit about yourself and share your spiritual awakening story if you have one. If not, then your journey to this point.
Yeah, let's go with the awakening, I think. So I've always loved the star signs and the feelings and stuff like that from being younger. But I definitely think the beginning of my spiritual journey started COVID time. That's the biggest point that I can, little bits of stuff before, but during COVID, so I'd spent 4 years saving up to open my own facility. I have a dance academy. That's what I did for 21 years before I took a leap of faith into the unknown, which no doubt we'll go into. And I'd saved up for 4 years for my studio, and I opened that in 2020, January. Not many weeks later, it was then closed. But what was really interesting from the moment they made the announcement, I just had this feeling and this peace that everything would be okay. So where there was so much uncertainty going on, like in the world and in the industry that I was in, people were like really fretting about what was going to happen, like with their business. I can't explain it, but now I don't even try. I just had this underlying, like, everything's going to be okay. But even though I had that, I still then listened to the audios of things don't happen to you, they happen for you. I turned to like affirmations. I always believe things come to us, and all of a sudden things like started coming into my world. I remember listening to Louise Hay stuff and thinking, oh my gosh, I really love her. And then I listened to a Wayne Dyer one. I still remember listening to it now to this day. I'll never forget what he said. And he said, don't die with your music still in you. There's just certain things that I started to pick up. It actually came at a really good time for me, I think. I met parts of myself in COVID that I didn't know. So for the first time in COVID, I felt like I had peace in my own head. And up to that point, I never had. But I didn't know that I didn't have that because I'd always operated. So I've always been a high achiever, conscientious, loved doing well, very competitive, blah, blah, blah. All of those traits that serve us well in some aspects, because I believe that everything's got its positives and its negatives that serve us well in some aspects. But then also, until I realised that we're also a bit of my nemesis, kind of in others. I really actually enjoyed COVID. Ultimately, we are all souls, but I am such a simple soul. I get so much joy out of the simple things. So it enabled me to really connect to a different speed of life. The slowness, the joy in the walks, the joy in the reading. We were lucky to have beautiful weather. That's definitely where it started. During COVID, I then qualified and trained to be a life coach. So again, I believe I was guided in order to kind of like do that. And then the big kind of deep stuff definitely started in 2022. I was doing my first business mastermind, and I was at an event and we had to do a meditation, and she was talking us through like the meditation, and we were making notes and everything. And then when we sort of like came back around, so to speak, and I was reading through like what I'd wrote, and I was like, what's on this bit of paper? Like, that does not represent this current reality that I am actually living. So I was like, that's come from somewhere though, like that's subconscious, it like unconscious, wherever it was. Even now when I tell the story, it was like it's such a strange feeling to kind of look at it and go, oh my gosh, like that life, like wow, like that is incredible, to like, what do I do with this? Like, where do I go from here? How do I get from where I am now to what this is meant to look like? And
Yeah.
that's a really conflicting place to be, because this is where like the soul and the human just kind of go into a little bit of battle with each
Yeah.
other. On the way home, I was like absolutely sobbing to my husband because it was only 2022. So this is only 2 years after I'd achieved the dream of doing what I thought I genuinely would do forever. This, to me, the studio was like, that was the dream. I always wanted to open my own studio
Yeah.
facility. I'd been a teacher for a long time, but to have a place where there were positive quotes on the wall and the energy matched
Mm.
like me, and it wasn't just a studio, it was a part of me that all these children could get to share. And then 2 years later, I was like, what do I do if then that's not what I'm doing? And I
Right.
just sobbed the whole way home, cried, because I didn't know what to do with that on a human level.
Yeah. Right.
But then after it had died down and I'd got my head around thinking, do you know what, actually? I feel like this is me. I feel like, so going back to the COVID thing, which I missed this point, COVID, bearing in mind I'd just spent 4 years working towards opening the
Yep.
studio, I didn't miss the dance, but what I did miss was the human connection. I've
Yeah.
realised that actually what I had done is use dance as a vehicle to support people to develop from the inside out. Somebody actually said to me earlier on in a conversation, actually, I think the whole entire thing that you've done has always been around identity and self-leadership and
Yeah.
inner, but you've just had it in different chapters and different ways within. I
Right.
sometimes worked in schools and stuff. And to cut now, like, because I've got a lot of spiritual stuff that we can go into, but 2022 summer until November 2025 was just a massive spiritual journey and a huge spiritual awakening. I'm happy
Wow.
to share parts of it if you feel like, I'm happy to take the questions, but it was just this journey of this all of the time. I just say I like literally did the hokey cokey with like full on belief, yes, I'm going to do this, to like, oh my God, I can't do this. That is literally what I spent 3.5 years trying to find myself, unpick the wounds, meet the reasons behind why I thought a certain way or behaved a certain way, or all of the stuff that we do to heal the things that we need to heal and connect with the parts that we need to connect with in order to support us in the
Yeah.
next part. I think the hardest thing, and I still find it hard to explain people, and I think unless people have ever experienced it, you can't explain a feeling. Like, it's a
Yeah.
feeling, a
Right.
feeling. It's just about trusting in what I just refer to as that feeling.
Yeah.
When that feeling comes, that intuition comes, that inner knowing comes, it's about learning to really, truly, and utterly connect within that and trust where, in my opinion, my truth, the soul is guiding us to where we're going, and navigating the human aspects that come up with that. And I'm still doing that now. I took a complete and utter leap of faith. So in November 2025, I finished. As we
Yep.
record this today, we're in May. And I literally jumped into the unknown. But I've always been into the law of attraction, well, since I was introduced to it, the law of attraction and all of these things. I genuinely think that what I'm navigating now is what I will support people with in the future. So the fear theory was born from my own journey of navigating fear. But
Yeah.
then I do hope that what I'm experiencing now, week by week, following the feels, trusting the inner whispers, leading down the things that just feel emotionally aligned, that in a few years' time I can go, this is what this helped me create. But I think the most
Right.
powerful point sometimes is to be able to share the messy middle bit, because that's where a lot of the lessons are. I find it a beautiful privilege to be able to experience conversations like this, because yes, I've had some parts of it figured out and I've got a lot to offer on what I have experienced. I say to people, like, I've literally jumped out of the plane now and I'm going, I hope this parachute comes.
Yeah.
Like, I hope it's there, because the trust for me is there, but I don't know what that's going to look like. But what I do keep coming back to saying and thinking and feeling time after time, whilst my external circumstances right now are the most unknown and uncertain and unplanned that they've ever been, internally, I have created the most internal peace and contentment and fulfillment that I have ever had. Having lost what the things that we cling to, if you like, in real life, of the job becomes part of our identity or whatever. Because all of that's changed for me, I've created a connection with myself, a connection with my soul, a connection with me that I genuinely have never felt before this point. So even if what I hope my future brings, even if none of that ends up coming into fruition, what I've gained from taking a chance on me is completely and utterly replaceable.
If you're ready to start quieting the loud thoughts and connecting with your soul self, I have a free gift for you. My Home on the Other Side meditation is available right now at ChristinaAngelMessenger.com. It's my way of helping you begin your journey. The link is in the show notes. Beautiful. I have so many thoughts on this. So COVID, I think, was a changing point for a lot of people. That quote from Wayne Dyer, that's one of the quotes that I first recognized. I was like, whoa, this is a very profound quote. It just hits in the soul. It's just like a different perspective on everything. When he said that quote, I was like, you're right, 100%. It's just amazing how you had that feeling that everything was going to work out during COVID, because COVID was very unknown for many, many people. For me, it was the tipping point of my anxiety. And working from home, I do tech support for a school district, all the teachers online and all the kids online. So it was very, very stressful. But then a couple years out of it, 2022, I was like, I'm meant here for something bigger. I turned on a podcast and I was hooked on a show, and to this day I still play it, and it inspired me to go do my angel member certification and this podcast. I just love hearing everybody's story because every story is different.
Yeah.
I think yours is so relatable, but you have to know the feeling. It's hard to describe that to people, but your story is really about trusting yourself. That's really hard for us as humans with our egoic mind and our monkey mind. I think it's the hardest thing. I always tell people we're going to live with it forever. So we need to learn how to tune into the intuition and our inner knowing and inner feelings. I think it's hard to tune out the egoic mind, but at least quiet it down a little bit more so that you can hear your intuition a little bit louder. I think your story is perfect for that.
Thank you.
I know you spent many, many years in a dance academy and you opened up that studio, and you had that inner knowing that everything's going to work out. That must have been really hard. Like, the whole world shut down. You just started a studio, and now you have this spiritual awakening. I think there's a different path for me. How did that feel? What was like I know you said you had an inner knowingness that this was the pivot that you needed to make, but there must have been lots of thoughts going around.
So during COVID time, I would say that was more of like a lighter kind of like feeling. So whilst I'd only just opened the studio, I still had the business. We used to have it in a school. We finally had the environment. I always said I wanted the environment to kind of represent it. But actually in COVID, I chose not to take dance classes online. And again, that was a challenging part. I've just remembered this now, so I've remembered it for a reason. That again was obviously an element of self-trust, because lots of other people in the area jumped and did their businesses online. And there was this big part of me that was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't know why. I just felt compelled that we don't often get chance as humans to just stop and pause and breathe. And that's what I wanted. I felt like I wanted to do. Also, like, because I'd been a business owner when I had my children, I felt like I was like, oh, my maternity leave, however many years later. But I felt compelled within COVID to send motivational emails to people. And as I say, when I did the coaching course, I was like, oh my gosh, like this, it feels like this is for me. But at that point, I was still doing the life coaching course with the belief of this is going to support me within the dance studio. But I would say COVID was the first time I really experienced that inner knowing, even down to a financial aspect. I'd just opened a studio and I would have had rent to pay. I didn't think like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay? Like, my brain didn't go to chaos. And I still to this day still can't tell you why, because I could overthinking in the past. I was one of those people. So I can't tell you. It's almost just like, it was like, it's okay. We've got you. I just felt incredibly supported by the universe within that point. There's definitely a picture of me in my garden, and maybe it was the time that I read it, but one of my favourite ever books, and it was the one that I read, was Gabby Bernstein, The Universe Has Your Back. I think
Yeah,
that
that's
that
a good one.
probably, yeah, because it gave me an experience to see how when things that we can't control are around, and obviously we had to watch the news, and it really did enable me to connect within because there was so much within that time that none of us were in control of. So actually from a self-confessed control freak up to that point,
Yeah,
it was a really big lesson, but one that I feel like I was sort of ready to have. I was grateful for it because I think that if that pause hadn't have come, I think that I would have got so then drawn into the business even more than what I was.
right.
Because until that pause came, I didn't know how, I'm going to use the term unhealthy, how unhealthy
Mm,
my commitment to my business was because I'd never had space to be able to recognize it. As I say, the way that I operated was just my normal. So until I
right.
was shown something different, I didn't know that. And because it was my passion, like I loved doing all of the work that I was doing in the hours that I was doing because it mattered to me. It still isn't even now a business. It's an extension of who I am, what I believe in, the values that I carry as a human. That's the whole entire thing that this business represents. When something's a piece of you and a part of you, it really matters. The real challenge came when the universe started making things uncomfortable for me. I'm going to put it in those terms. And that was
Yeah.
after 2022, between summer, so May time, it was when I started the mastermind, May 2022, up
Yep.
until November 2022. Honestly, my life, what I was like floating through life. It just
Mm,
felt so easy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely it. And I always say to people on their awakening journey, there's always a really good bit, and then there's the bit that goes, nah, babe, you're going to do the work. If
yep.
you want the, it's almost like the, you know, like on the trailer of a film where you like, they show you all the good bits of the film. To experience the film, you've then got to watch the full bit. It's almost like that you get this is what it could be like. Oh, but if you want this all the time, we're going to take you back down here. You are going to meet parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed, and you are going to dig out that you really don't want to see. That's then what happened in the course of between the November 2022 and then up to like that point, and the whole emotions on that and the things that came up. And it's not something that I'm ready to share openly now, but what I will say is that I experienced something that I 100% to this day will still declare was divine intervention, because it was like the universe was like, yeah, we'll just show you you do not need to be there. We'll take you out of that situation. That little change that you keep making because you think you're still meant to be in that business. No, I've got other plans for you. It didn't matter, like following the
Yeah.
last few years, it didn't matter what I changed, what I pivoted, what I did. I was like, why can I not connect back to how it
Right.
used to feel? Why can I not find, don't get me wrong, I wasn't unhappy. I still had a lot of fulfillment
Yeah.
until the point where I was like, this nudge and this push is too big, because the job used to really light me up, and it got to where it felt more heavy and it felt suffocating. It's like, what? But I don't understand why. I don't know why it
Right.
feels like this, because nothing's really changed. In fact, actually, it's the most successful it's ever been. The kids are absolutely gorgeous. The families are incredible. The financials are all in place. And I'm like, it's because my soul had outgrown where I
Yeah.
needed to be. I didn't know enough at that time to be able to recognize that early enough to be able to kind of make the change. But I also come back to, but we're always exactly where we're meant to be. So for me, it was meant to take 3.5 years to navigate and negotiate that. Because I think sometimes when people, you know, I mean, awakenings can last a long time. I've worked with a soul coach, and like it was actually a beautiful journey. It was a 9 month soul like connection journey, and I absolutely loved it, and I got so much out of it. But there's so many times where I said to her, I feel like I just need this to come to an end. I feel like I'm running out. I mean, it's a funny analogy that I've just thought of, but like for anyone that's a parent that's gone through childbirth, like you get to a point in childbirth and you go, I can't do it anymore. Can't do it anymore.
Right.
I can't, I've nothing left. And normally that's when the midwives will go, yeah, but we're nearly there now. Like we're so close. That's where I feel like the last few months of like being taken to the depth in order
Yeah.
to kind of then really come out of the other side.
Yeah. I believe in divine timing, divine intervention, but also everything happens for a reason. We might not know why.
Yeah.
But I think you had to open that studio. You had to go through those to get to the point where awakened and you're like, this doesn't feel right anymore. But I do have to say, you are surrounded by angels. I just feel their energy all around you. They were helping you throughout the whole process.
Made me go tingly that when you said that.
They are just such loving beings and they help us all the time with all kinds of things at our highest or our lowest. But I do have to say your analogy about the movie theater, like the trailer, 100% aligns because I believe that God, universe, source, the angels show us the end where we're supposed to be when we're fulfilled our purpose. And then we have to do the work to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
We may not know how or when, but as long as you have seen what your purpose is and what that could look like, that's what the up and down that you were talking about.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think there's so many parts to navigate, and I think there's so many people out now in the world who are supporting people through all of this in like multiple
Right.
different ways, whether it's through spiritual teachings or mindset coaching, and that's kind of, I now have the fear theory, which is to me such a powerful framework because one of the things that everybody, like every single person, navigates at some point is that fear. So there are so many things that we have to learn and go through. But yeah, I completely agree.
I totally align with you because I am a perfectionist. I am an overachiever. And the angels are working with me, especially this year, kind of coming back into the podcast and giving my focus back to my business, is that you don't need to know how it's all going to work out. You don't need to, like, I called myself a little insane where I would edit the website over and over and over and over and over again. And at one point they were just like, can you not keep editing it? You're not getting the feeling that you're trying to put across. And I was like, okay, I hear you. I will stop being a perfectionist. It's hard, as well as the fear of the unknown is something else they've been working with me on. Because for me, my mindset is always worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Why just where it goes for me. This year, they were like, we're going to work on that. We're going to just not acknowledge that the fear is there, but don't try to imagine it or think of the scenarios that could happen. I would love to hear about your fear theory and what it is and how did it come about. Did your spirit team send you a sign or message this week? I want to hear about it. Submit it through the Soul Self template on my website for a chance to win a free private 15-minute session with me. One listener is chosen every month. Details are in the show notes. Don't miss your chance.
Yeah, so I'll loop back a teeny bit because when you said about
Sure.
perfectionism and self-doubt, and there was something else that you said, like they're all fear responses. I always talk about the fear responses that have been most personal to me because I just think I believe that it's only my right to share things and teach things that I personally kind of experience with. So the majority of the fear responses that I deal with, because I've become so well acquainted with them over the years, is the comparison, self-doubt.
100%.
Yeah, so
Yep.
comparison, self-doubt, perfectionism, overthinking, and then sort of fear of failure. But all of those, they're all protection responses. The way in which we try to, if we're so perfect at something, it's like it minimizes the criticism like that we're going to get. Or
Yep.
so everything is all about protection. So the more effort that you put into like your website, it's then my fear and feelings were always around needing to feel enough.
Yeah.
So that came from when I was an 18-year-old student at dance college. I wanted to be a professional dancer. I went to dance college at the age of 18 thinking, oh my God, all my dreams are going to come true. 3 years later,
Yeah.
I'm going to do West End. I'm going to do this. 3 months into dance college, I was like, get me out of here. Like
Wow.
the self-doubt I'd always been a pretty confident person, really capable, really talented, like potential. I always say to people, that's why it doesn't matter what you've actually got. Like potential is always going to be there. Talent is always going to be there. Capability like is there. But actually what I didn't have at that time was mindset. No one had ever taught me how to understand my own mind. I was in an environment where I was comparing myself to everybody so much. the self-doubt was absolutely suffocating. I just was constantly thinking, I'm not good enough to be here. I'm not good enough to be here. I'm not good enough to be here. I definitely was, but I'd never been exposed to challenge. When we talked about how we go on this journey to then achieve the thing, so many of us don't like the experiences that we brought. But I heard, or maybe it was definitely either on Instagram or something recently, and it said, please, I'm not a religious person, but I'm going to say it in the way that it was like explained, because it makes it was like, please God, make me strong. Okay, in order to make you strong, I have to put you in scenarios where you're going to gain strength. Please God, make me brave. Well, in order to make you brave, I'm going to put you in situations where you're going to have to show courage. So it's like, we want these certain things in life, but we have to understand that we have to navigate the challenges in order to be able to. So Becky back in the day probably did have potential to be a professional dancer, but if she's going to be a professional dancer, she's got to be mentally strong. She's got to be able to be around other people that are better than her, and she's got to be able to be inspired by them. But no one had ever taught me to see things that way. I think that how we see things is so important. Ultimately, without even realizing it, my relationship with fear started back at the age of 18, because it was fear of not being enough and fear of thinking I'm going to fail if I stay here that made me leave. But it was also the making of me, because with all those qualities that I didn't have, what did I do? I created a business that gave the kids all of these things that I didn't have. But in terms of the fear theory, it is a 4-part framework to support people to understand and navigate fear differently. We've mentioned a few of the feelings, and we've mentioned how they are really uncomfortable. But actually, if we then think, rather than fear is not a stop sign, it's a doorway to expansion. For so many of us, when that fear comes, we automatically want to either get rid of it, or we feel like it's a negative because we start doing the certain things. And it's now understanding that it's showing up because, okay, I'm ready to grow here. This is actually a good thing. F is future focus. So that is, the F part is very much about the inner knowing, the intuition, or from a human point of view, who do I want to be? What do I want to achieve? Where do I want to go? What life do I want to create? Now, what I love about my theory is that it is so universal, so it can be used for anything. So for some people, they might have a fear of implementing boundaries, so they can come to the theory and go, what do I want on the other side of this? I want to be someone that's comfortable implementing boundaries, but that scares me right now. It can be used for big things and small things, but the F is always coming back to future focus. Who do I want to be? And I always say the who, because there's a lot of talk now around manifestation and everything else, but manifestation is not about going to get, it's about being a version of ourselves that then matches the frequency of the things that we like want to bring in. But I don't want to get too deep into that, because I want to just, the cleaner the theory is explained, because it's one of those, it's like simplistic on top, but a lot of stuff underneath. If all the time is just always coming back to, who am I going to be on the other side of this? What am I wanting to move towards? E is expansion capacity. So this part, this is where a lot of the uncomfortable stuff happens. This is the ability to understand and navigate our emotions and internal experiences as we grow. So within that, the biggest one, well, the biggest two actually, so voice of protection versus voice of expansion that I say. So the self-doubt or the comparison or the overthinking or the perfectionism, that'll be, that website needs changing again. That's your voice of protection, because it's trying to keep you so super safe in the identity that you always have, and that is what is new to you. Because the brain's not bothered about a desire. The brain is like, what's familiar to me and what feels safe. So it will always, but it's a bit like, I love this explanation. So expansion capacity, the easiest way to understand it is, let's say we want to achieve something, but within our house, right, my thermostat, so we work in obviously like degree C over here, is like my thermostat in my house is at 19. It doesn't matter how much that thermostat goes on, my house is only going to heat to 19. The only way that my house is going to heat more is not by turning the heating on again and again and again and again. We come back to the thermostat. What's the setting at? If it needs to go to 21, that's got to go to 21. Expansion capacity is about changing the internal systems and supporting the nervous system to be able to expand and feel safe. The voice of protection is the voice that's always going to, the mind gremlins, the monkey mind, the ego. Then we have the voice of expansion, which is, why not? Why couldn't you do that? Why not me? I wouldn't be having these feelings. I wouldn't be having these feelings if this wasn't possible for me. This wouldn't even be in my heart if I couldn't make this happen. It's about counteracting that. And once we actually recognize that the voice of protection is like, they're just thoughts, and thoughts are not facts. Once we can learn to separate it out, say it becomes easier to navigate, it doesn't. It becomes easier to understand, to then be able to navigate, because we're able to separate it all out. A is aligned action. Now, there's two parts to this. So there's the part where there's movement involved, which is, I always say, where self-trust and courage come together and we take that one small step forward towards the version that we want to be. For someone that is implementing a boundary, that discomfort, oh my God, what are they going to think? Like if I tell them not to text me after 9 o'clock at night, right? Something as small as that. To then the aligned action is, you know, replying and putting that boundary in place. It's going to still feel uncomfortable. I think the biggest misconception with aligned action can still feel scary. We're not, someone said earlier on about eliminating the fear. That's the biggest, we can't eliminate it until we get to where we've actually moved and gone with it and we get past it and we get the evidence. Like we have to learn to take fear with us. The aligned action part of a movement is when self-trust and courage meet and we take that one small step forwards towards the future that we want to be, towards the version of ourselves, towards what we want to achieve, the life that we want to create. But I'm also a big advocate for an intentional pause, because there's so much pressure and expectation that we're always going to be moving forwards in life. And from someone that always felt like I needed to be in action and in moving and in going, the biggest sometimes support I'm going to use to our growth is to go,
yes, that's what I did last year.
I'm just gonna be here right now, because either I need time to work out what that exact aligned action step looks like, or we may well have experienced a growth or an expansion or an identity evolution. And after that happens, we need time for integration. We need our nervous system to catch up. And I always say my favourite, like, everyday example, because so many of us have iPhones, is when our iPhone is doing an iOS update, you can't use it.
Right.
You can't use
Period.
it. You've just got to stop. Now, once we recognise, a lot of people hopefully will be like, oh my gosh, now I realise sometimes I'd be trying to like force creativity in something that I was doing, or think about something like, and now I don't have to think too much about stuff. I allow the stuff to come to me. If I'm trying to force something, it means I'm actually meant to be experiencing a pause right now. Because I think, again, we feel like as humans, we have to figure it all out. We don't always have to figure it all out. We have to trust the feelings and move with the feelings, and it will figure itself out along the way.
100%.
And then the R side is reinforcing identity. This is then through repetition and reflection, repeating who we want to be, where we want to go, coming back to being, just meeting those voices, expanding that capacity, taking the aligned action or the intentional pause. We reinforce who we want to be. So we strengthen and stabilize the version of ourselves that we want to be in the future. And then when we upgrade and we up level again, we go back through the whole entire process. This can be used for like so many different things, because recently I made a decision in the dance business that was a really challenging decision. And the fear was there and all those, but it was, but what do I want the future of the dance school to look like? When we keep coming back to what do I actually want in the future and embody that now, knowing that initially it's going to be uncomfortable. I remember the first time I stopped teaching the competition team, the first time that I didn't go to a competition, I spent the whole weekend in tears, because the level of guilt, that's another fear response, the level of guilt that I felt was horrendous. It was so uncomfortable for me. I felt like I was letting everyone down. I felt like that people would be talking about me and blah, 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 blah. that's the voice of protection. All the
Right.
horrendous thoughts. The following time I didn't go, I still felt uncomfortable, but not as much as the first. Then the third time I didn't go to the competitions, still a little bit uncomfortable, but not as bad as the second or the first. Eventually, 12 months later, it was actually my brother-in-law. We were at my sister's and he said, "You've not been at competitions today." And I was like, "Oh no, I don't go anymore. Like that's not my role anymore. I passed that role on to another teacher." And I felt so okay with that. But it had been a process to get to that point, and for my brain to understand that that was no longer my role, that was no longer what I did. But it takes time for the brain to accept the shift in the identity. That's why the future focus part is so important, because it's trusting that version of ourselves that we do know that we can become, and we do know that we're here to be, and then working through that framework to just keep going back to that. I just think that it also allows fear to be something that we can befriend. We can acknowledge, like now, when I do something like I've got a new experience in a couple of weeks, that I know my body is going to be like, the nervous system is huge. I know on that day,
Right.
my nervous system is going to be responding, but I can sit in that situation now very differently because I know exactly what's happening. Yeah, I'm feeling this because it's new. I'm feeling this because it's unfamiliar. I'm feeling this because it matters to me. That's another thing. We feel the things when it
Yeah.
matters to us and when it's important to us. So to be able to acknowledge those feelings when I know that, like, that's easy. The one thing actually that I have thought of, and it's a separate but also an important part of the fear theory.
Yeah.
So many of us try to think ourselves out of a feeling.
Yes.
Recently, I was like, we cannot change a physiological state with a psychological thought. I'm a big advocate for like exercise and going to the gym. So a few
Yep.
weeks ago, I had my first in-person studio podcast, and boy, did my nervous system and my body know that that's what's happening that day.
Yeah.
I went out and had a run because I know that by moving the energy and moving the body, it changes our physiological state. That's also a really important part with the theory that, yes, we understand the feelings, but actually, in order to dissolve them, we have to move at times in order
Right.
to do that.
I'm glad you brought up the exercise because Spirit has been working with me recently on that too, where I get all this anxious energy that I have out. I've been doing more exercise now that it's nicer out, now that it's springtime. It does just like release the energy out. You don't realize how much energy you're holding in. Glad that you have that part of the fear theory.
The other thing that I want to add, and it's just reminded me, so again, it's meant to come. So sometimes I can wake up in a morning, I can wake up like I've experienced anxiety in the past. When those feelings like would come up, back in the day, I'd be like, why am I feeling like this? I'm like regressing. I thought I dealt with this by now, and here we are again. I think, again, there's this misconception that like it's a one and done, and it's not. We're always evolving and we're always unpicking layers. Sometimes I can wake up in a morning and I can just feel a particular way. And there can be so many reasons, whether it's
Yeah.
hormones or things, but one of the things that now I say with my theory is, now I wake up and I go, oh, okay, I'm upgrading. I'm upgrading. So instead of, why am I feeling this? What's wrong? What do I need to control? And all of the stuff, and get the monkey mind and the negative stuff going, I now just go, I'm upgraded. Because it does. When the nervous system is doing an upgrade, it can bring feelings of anxiousness. It can make us cry. I'm a big crier, but I
Mm-hmm.
cry actually in like positive ways. I'm able to identify now, like if I do a meditation and it really connects with my soul, oh my gosh, I just like completely and utterly sob,
Yeah.
because it's like this connection and this remembrance that unless somebody has experienced that, they'll be like, what? That's what it feels like for me. Like it's like hitting this light inside, or this remembrance. Then also I can cry and I know that I'm like, we're releasing, we're ready to let go of this. I don't need to carry this anymore. This doesn't need to serve me anymore. And all of this stuff comes under expansion capacity. When I say understanding and navigating our emotions, I always say to people, whether it's true or not, it can be my truth. So if I wake up in the morning and feel anxious, but my truth is, I'm just upgrading, and that changes how I feel about those feelings, and I feel better because that's my meaning towards those
Yeah.
feelings, then that's my truth and that's okay.
It's also you're like rewiring your mindset. You're rewiring your brain on how it thought for so many years.
Yeah. And we know it's possible to do that.
Right.
We can rewire our brain. Science tells us that we can. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It just takes time and patience.
Oh, yeah. It's a constant journey. One of the things that I always say if I go into a school, because it's always like something that children can get their head around, but I think it's a great analogy
Yeah.
for adults, is like a game of snakes and ladders. And it's like 0 is when we're born, and 100 is when we die. We just got to keep going along the board. And sometimes we're going to fly up a ladder and we're going to get ahead. And then other
Yeah.
times we're going to come down a snake, but just keep throwing the dice. Like, just keep throwing the dice and
Going.
just keep going and just keep exploring. And yeah, time and patience. Because to me, the only time, like, I'm grateful for a version of myself that shows me that dreams can come true. Because I had a dream of opening a studio and I did that. I have one part evidence already. And there were times where I thought that dream was not going to come. God, did I desperately want that? I felt like I waited forever and ever and ever for that to kind of be the,
Right.
the case. So yeah, by just keeping going with, like you say, the time, the patience, the commitment, and the inner knowing and the resilience. Because I think we're in a world now where things can be like super fast. People
Right.
want the thing and they want it now and they want it yesterday. Sometimes now what looks like people are achieving overnight success, it's like it's years and years and years of the things that people didn't see. I've done an event tonight for people within my dance academy thinking it was going to be so popular. It's Mental Health Awareness Week this week. I was
Mhm.
like, I want to create a space where people can come in. I was a
Yeah.
working mum. I know as a mum, it's all about giving into your children and we give to the others and we look after the house and we have our jobs and everything else. I was like, I want to create a session where people can come in and they can just have that time and that space for them. We'll do some meditation, we'll do some breath work. I was like, £11.11, like that feels so aligned. Let's go with that. Super accessible.
Mhm.
One person came. One
Oh.
person came. Now I see that I'm still deemed that successful because my success was in, I trusted my intuition for the space. I made the event happen. I followed the inner knowing to put the event on. I turned up into the space and delivered the best thing that I did. I also supported that one person today, and that matters. But
Mm.
let's say because I'm not shy about my goals. I want to do global speaking. I eventually want to stand on a stage and share my work in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people. I want to, be somebody where in a few years it actually costs a lot more than £11.11 for somebody to be in my
Right.
space. But I remember Kirsty Gallagher saying, nobody, people see what she's doing now, but not necessarily the times where she was turning up to a public hall to do yoga
True.
and she'd got 2 or 3 people there. Just because we have the inner knowing doesn't mean the
Mhm.
navigation's not going to bring us the challenges, but the challenges that it brings and the obstacles and the experiences, I just think they're all about getting our armor. It's like, oh, I've got another
Yes.
piece there that's going to give me this. I needed that bit. I collect that along the way. It's a little bit like a video game.
Ah.
Think about life being a video game and just because then the challenges that we experience, and we all experience them, the obstacles that we come up against, we're able to meet them with more gratefulness. Actually, I'm going to use the term
Mm.
gratitude. I'm so grateful that I experienced this because it taught me this. And I need that skill
Yes.
in order to achieve this. And that takes a lot of practice to develop that mindset. But that's become so normal for me because everything that I experience, I go, but what is it giving me? What
Right.
strength is it providing me with? I don't really have that sort of like victim mindset anymore because I kind of go, oh, the universe is testing me here. I'm being tested.
Yeah.
I'm gaining like another stripe or another,
Right.
level or whatever it is to kind of go with where I am. I think it's so powerful to take reframes into the things that are uncomfortable for us, the challenges, the obstacles, the fear, and use them as a way to support us to get the
Yeah.
things that feel good. Because everything in life once and it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, everything in life. I hate using the term hard work, so I want to avoid that now. I always use the term obstacle or challenge. The things that we want, they are worth experiencing this to get that.
Yeah.
Like what I said, I will completely take what I experienced. I didn't at the time. It'll only ever come after the
Right.
difficulty and the challenge that I had for 3.5 years. I am so now grateful for that, to now sit in the space that I'm in, because I now really, for so much of my life, I'm so open to surrender and to flow and to trust. I don't quite know yet how good things could get, but let's see.
Yeah. Just one step at a time. Your analogies are, I have to say, are amazing. They just make so much sense. So you're saying your analogy for the video game, like you get a piece, you get a skill. What the angels showed me, our life is basically a huge puzzle. It's like a 10,000 piece puzzle. And every time you get something, you get a little piece of the puzzle. And then eventually you make your little corner or your border or something. I just love that analogy of video game because that's what a lot of these people, especially kids, relate with.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's about explaining things that are relatable, like with the intentional pause. It's like, but we mentioned like updating our iPhone, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense, because it's small things that can kind of have, and like with someone said to me this week, I have this belief that my life is mapped out for me. And I said, I agree and disagree in like equal measures, because I said, do I believe that the things that you want to do and the life that you want to have, like, I believe that if you didn't have capability, capacity, potential to, in order to have that, it wouldn't even be in your heart. I think the things that we have in our heart, that I believe my truth is, that come from our soul, they're there because we're able to do it. But we also do have free will. Things are not just
Yes.
gonna, things
100%.
are not, I always like think of it like, where, okay, yes, this is what we really could have, but also there's all of these other options as
Yeah.
well, because you might not do the things.
I want people to know where they can find you, your website, any links that you want to share.
Yes, so my website is currently under construction, but depending on when this goes out, come back and see it. That's Becky Farrar, FARRAR.com. I share a lot of my content on Instagram. So I'm happy
Perfect.
for people to contact me there, reach out with things, questions. Yeah, I'm happy to answer it all. And thank you for a lovely conversation.
Well, thank you, Becky, so much. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, but unfortunately, I got somebody else right after.
And
Maybe we'll do a part
be gorgeous, like maybe in 12 months or a year's time, or, but yeah, to
two. Yeah.
me, whatever came up today was meant to happen, and I was meant to raise my hand and forget about what it was. And I think that's maybe
Yeah.
just one final thing that would be amazing. Like, the two things are, fear isn't a stop sign, it's a doorway to expansion, and just trust that everything that happens is meant to happen, because then that's how we end up being able to flow through life with much more ease.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful ending to this episode. Thank you, Becky, so much for
Thank
being
you
my
for having
guest on this podcast. It was amazing. You taught me a lot about fear and the fear theory. I'm going to go look into that now because I think it's amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Lovely souls, have a great day. See you next week. Quieter voice, your intuition, your angels, your soul self. It's always there. Keep doing inner work to find it. Today's episode resonated, and hit follow or subscribe so we can keep crossing the bridge together. I'll see you next time.